Yeah, she stays alone, never shares a single tear. She stays in the coolest mood, clearly rolling up the yeah. She and all her girlfriends, they go out, dressed to win. And she comes right to the coolest side of town. But she lives in my land. 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 Oh, she lives in my land. Oh, she lives in my land. Remember my fiance? She lives in my land. She lives in my land. Oh, yeah. Make me want you. Make me miss you. Make me wonder where you are and forget you. Will remind me of who we are. We're oh so close, but yet so far.
All right. How's everybody doing today? It is the 5th of May. Yes, it's the 5th of May, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA, and 3 p.m. Central European Time in the EU. So, yeah, folks, I've been waiting to do this one for a minute, and it's about a comparison on the EU and the US. Part of it, part of the comparison. Since I'm from the US and I live in the EU, I like to do these kind of presentations and lives every once in a while to discuss some of the differences. And the differences can be about the black populations, right? African populations, whatever you want to call it, right? Or the differences could be about everybody, just what are the food standards or what's the education system like. But today I promised Donnie and a few others that I would be doing something on the food and some of the foods that have been banned, that are in the US, but they've been banned in the EU. So, yeah, so those of you all that are on this ride, welcome. And those of you all that come in the middle of it, welcome to you too. And I'll catch you on the replay. So here we go. Let's take a little dive and see what it do here.
We want to turn now to a series of stories that we are doing this week on how U.S. food regulations have left American consumers exposed to chemicals and additives that have been banned in other countries. CBS's Holly Williams goes in depth to show us how some of these ingredients may be linked to cancer and other health-related issues.
From baguettes to focaccia, Europe is famous for its bread, but one ingredient is missing. Potassium bromate is a suspected carcinogen that's banned for human consumption in Europe as well as China and India, but legal in the US, where it's used by some food makers to strengthen dough and estimated to be present in over 100 products.
There is evidence that it may be toxic to human consumers, that it may even either initiate or promote the development of tumours.
Professor
And one of the things that we've also been talking about here in the comparison on the EU and the US is the healthcare system. So keep that in mind when we think about, what are the toxins in the foods, what foods are being banned, what toxins are being banned as we go along.
Rick Millstone is an expert on food additives and told us European countries take a much more cautious approach to food safety. Can we say for sure that these differences in regulations mean that people in the US have developed cancers that they would not have developed if they'd been eating only in Europe?
I think that is almost certainly the conclusion that we could reach.
It's not just potassium bromate, but many other chemicals and substances that are banned here in Europe over health concerns, but considered safe by the FDA. Do you think most Americans are aware that they're being exposed to substances that are viewed as dangerous over here?
They probably just think, well, if it's available and it's in the store, then it's probably fine.
Stacey McNamara is from upstate New York, but has been living in London for 10 years. She told us raising children on this side of the Atlantic has opened her eyes to what's allowed in food in the US. She has no plans to ever move back home. And is food safety a part of that decision?
For sure, yeah. How am I going to protect my children when it's just everywhere?
In a statement to CBS News, the FDA said that when used properly, potassium bromate converts to a harmless substance during food production. But at the same time, Nora, it acknowledged that not all potassium bromate may convert, saying control measures can minimise the amount in food.
Holly Williams, thank you.
Okay. So you think this is olive oil, right? Wrong. Well, maybe some of it is, but this is actually a classic example of food fraud.
Extra virgin
What's up, Donnie?
olive oils are being switched out with cheap ones.
And fraudulent to sell something labeled as something else.
Why is this fish being mislabeled?
Your Parmesan cheese products do not contain any Parmesan cheese.
Is there was no one brand that stood out as completely safe.
Wow, so we can't eat anything.
I guarantee you, anytime a product can be passed off as something more expensive, it will be. It's that simple.
Counterfeits, dilution, substitution, and mislabeling. Food fraud not only harms consumers' wallets, it puts their health and safety at risk.
We might not know the overall impact of food fraud because so much of what fraudsters do is hidden from us and has been for centuries.
Some estimates say food fraud affects at least 1% of the global food industry, at a cost as high as $40 billion a year, according to the Food and Drug Administration.
And what we're doing here today is a comparison on the U.S. Food and Health Human Services Administration and the EU, the differences in that, right? And keep in mind that we've already been talking about some of the differences in the healthcare system. So keep that in mind.
Grocery Manufacturers of America estimated that 10% of the commercially available food in the United States is adulterated. That's 1 in 10. It means if you're not on that 8-item or less checkout line, you've got something in your cart when you leave the supermarket that's probably bogus.
Here's how and why fake food sits secretly in our kitchen cabinets. According to the FDA, food fraud is considered economically motivated adulteration, or EMA.
It's a monetary impact to the consumer and to the food manufacturers, but it's also a potential public safety, public health impact. It robs us of nutrients and can kill people and has done.
Larry Olmsted researched food fraud for years and published his book, Real Food, Fake Food, in 2016.
As I worked on this book, my definition of fake food became anytime what you buy is not what you think you're buying. Doesn't really matter whether it's legal or illegal. It's where you're being tricked. You're buying something that's not what you think it is.
The worst offenders can include seafood, meat, dairy, honey, alcohol, spices.
The fraud happens more with more expensive foods. Totally makes sense, right? There's a higher margin.
Take your extra virgin olive oil as an example. Fraud usually occurs here when a cheaper oil is added to the more expensive oil, and the label still reads 100% extra virgin olive oil. That's food fraud.
Olive oil has been adulterated for thousands of years because it is of high value and it is sought out.
They might flavor it with beta carotene and maybe color it with a little chlorophyll to make it a little more green. And so then you've got a lower quality, cheaper oil.
So both of these olive oils I got at the grocery store, and both of them are the store brand, but one cost way more than the other. This one had a label of 100% Mediterranean blend of extra virgin olive oil.
So these are just the fraud companies. This is not even the chemical companies yet. So check it
So
out.
the olives were sourced from a bunch of different European countries, and it said it was packed in Italy, and there was no expiration date. And when I purchased this one was a 100% California extra virgin olive oil. First pressed, cold pressed, unfiltered, no artificial colors, preservatives, or flavors. And this one had an expiration date. It said that these olives were harvested in October, November 2022, and that it would be good on your shelf until August 2024. And it was much more expensive. Roughly twice as much as this olive oil. And this one had way more information about where this olive oil came from. Now let's look at the spice market as another one that's vulnerable to fraud. Think of an expensive spice, like saffron. This tiny amount cost me $20 at the store. Saffron can be bulked up with some other material like plant stems and sold as the same, according to the FDA.
Popular spices like basil and chili powder from a range of different.
What is that? You see they're cutting the stems from roses.
Brands.
Anything that's kind of colored orange, brown, and ground up can be passed off as turmeric.
It's the ultimate bait and switch.
And then there's fish. The FDA says seafood fraud can occur when a less expensive species of fish is substituted for a more expensive species. After all, it's kind of hard to know what fish you're buying, right?
If you're an experienced chef or fishmonger, you can look at like a red snapper fillet and tell whether it's red snapper, but 99% of consumers can't. You know, most of the fish we eat is white fish. Every fillet looks pretty much the same, which is why there's so much substitution. The FDA is mandated by law to inspect 2% of the imported seafood, which is, I think, a very, very low bar.
In fact, the
2%. 2%. That is ridiculous.
U.S. imports as much as 85% of its fish.
But federal fisheries enforcement is serious business.
So they're inspecting 2% of 85% of its market. That is ridiculous.
Agents from NOAA and U.S. Customs tear open a container filled with frozen fish from Thailand. They're looking for fraud.
First, it's important to understand.
Yo, you can't even buy certain fish over here, man. I think this, what is it, a trout or something? It's some fish. I'm going to find out. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to let this play and we get into it.
The matrix that food fraud lives in. There's intentional and unintentional types of food risk. Unintentional risks include food safety and quality, like accidental foodborne illnesses.
2% is super low.
CDC estimates about 50 million people a year contract a foodborne illness. Only 20%, 1 in 5 of those can be identified. So there's 40 million people a year getting sick from something they ate that we don't know what it is. And a good guess would be that fraud has something to do with that.
Then there's intentional. That's where food fraud is alongside food defense. The difference is fraud is motivated by economic gain and defense is motivated by harm.
If you have a ton of coffee and you can turn that into 1.2 tons by adding some cheap filler to it, you've just increased your profits by 20%. And a lot of these products pass through a lot of hands. They go from small growers to big trucks to tankers to boats to processing plants. It's not necessarily like this big company that's selling you coffee that's ripping you off. It can happen in a lot of ways along the way.
Even the FDA says it can't estimate how often this fraud happens or its economic impact. Over the last 10 years, the most common fraud committed is...
Yo, to imagine the FBA just admit they have no idea of the economic impact. That is ridiculous. Hold on, let me see something here.
Often this fraud happens or its economic impact. Over the last 10 years, the most common...
And a lot of these products pass through a lot of hands. They go from small growers
here it is.
To big trucks to tankers to boats to processing plants. It's not necessarily like this big company that's selling you coffee that's ripping you off. It can happen in a lot of ways along the way.
Even the FDA says it can't estimate how often this fraud happens.
It can't estimate how often this fraud happens or
its economic impact.
or its economic impact. I mean, and that's the FDA making that statement. So, what are they getting paid? What's the budget for the FDA? I'm curious about that in comparison also to other budgets. Yeah, so
Over the last 10 years, the most common fraud committed is lying about an animal's origin and dilution or substitution, both ranking at 16% of incidents recorded. Dilution and substitution are exactly what they sound like. Perhaps somewhere along the supply chain, the real expensive process of refining something like fresh olives is ignored. Maybe a little canola oil is added instead. Then there's the removal of value, when an ingredient or part of a food is intentionally left out, taken out, or substituted altogether. And that substitute can be a non-food substance. That's the 14% of the recorded food fraud incidents using non-food substances.
The pandemic.
Non-food substances. Using non-food substances. Oh, that is crazy. Hold on.
Food substance. That's the 14 somewhere along the supply chain, the real expensive process of refining something like fresh olives is ignored. Maybe a little canola oil is added instead. Then there's the removal of value, when an ingredient or part of a food is intentionally left out, taken out, or substituted altogether. And that substitute can be a non-food substance.
And that substitute can be a non-food substance. That's really sick.
That's the 14% of the recorded food fraud incidents using non-food substances.
The pandemic has given us a chance to focus on supply chains and forced us to.
For example, during the pandemic, labeling fraud really spiked in 2021 to 21% of the types of fraud that were committed and recorded.
You know, if we knew all about it, why hasn't it been solved? The key was we weren't focusing on prevention. Food fraud prevention, if we do it right, is boring. We're the fire marshal checking exits and smoke alarms, not catching the bad guys.
The U.S. has laws in place to ensure food safety. That's part of what the FDA does today.
Basically, all food fraud, all product fraud is illegal under one law or another, somehow.
Before the FDA existed, manufacturers could add basically whatever they wanted into the food. Think of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. That book was published in 1906. That same year, food safety regulation began with the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drugs Act, which outlawed adulterated and misbranded food items.
To protect consumers,
This ultimately led to the creation of the FDA.
the Food and Drug Administration and the
Since then, laws have hit the books to further food safety protocols, like the Food Safety Modernization Act signed into law in 2011.
And then horse meat hit.
The fraud was on a grand scale.
Horse meat was blended into beef in the UK, across Europe.
And sold to unsuspecting supermarkets for a period of 8 months in 2012. The scandal was exposed.
And that was a great wake-up call.
Some companies purposely mislead on labels.
Prosecuting the fraudsters committing the crime can be tricky. After all, they're purposely trying to avoid that detection. But criminals are caught. Like in 2016.
Product labeled Market Pantry 100% Parmesan contained cheaper Swiss and cheddar cheese and an organic filler called cellulose, which can be derived from wood pulp.
Yeah, do you trust cheese?
Castle Cheese was caught adding wood pulp and cheddar to its grated Parmesan.
What? Hold on, wood pulp.
As 100% criminals are caught. Like in 2016.
Product labeled Market Pantry 100% Parmesan contained cheaper Swiss and cheddar cheese and an organic filler called cellulose, which can be derived from wood pulp.
Castle Cheese was caught adding wood pulp and cheddar to its grated Parmesan that they sold as 100% Parmesan cheese.
Wait a second. Let me check this out. What the heck is wood pulp? Hold on. I gotta be sure. There's 2 seconds, y'all. Wood pulp. Wood fiber reduced chemically or mechanically to pulp and used in the manufacture of paper. Wood pulp. Yo, wait a second here. Wait a second, y'all. Because I don't want anybody to think I'm just like making this up. 2 seconds. Let me see here. Share screen. Right. Boom. That's it. Wood pulp. Seymour. Wood pulp. Wood fiber reduced chemically or mechanically to pulp. Yeah, a wood fiber that is reduced chemically or mechanically to pulp and used in the manufacturing of paper. Woo!
It does allow fillers like cellulose in cheese, but it can only make up 4% of the total ingredients.
The president of the company got a $5,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, and 3 years of probation.
For its part, the Food and Drug Administration says its job is to make sure food doesn't hurt you, not to police the labels.
Fraud is tough for the consumer in terms of food because it's difficult. They don't have a lab in their kitchen.
The Food Fraud Prevention Think Tank has a 5-question survey consumers
Absolutely, Donnie. Wow, that's
can use when
crazy.
shopping for food. 1. What type of product is it?
Be aware of product that you put on you, in you, or plug in the wall.
2. Quality. Can you recognize the difference between the products? If you can't easily tell the difference, that makes you more vulnerable to fraud.
If I drink scotch, I couldn't tell you if it's a difference between a $50 bottle and a $5,000 bottle. So I know I could be deceived at that point.
3. Supplier. Do you know the retailer or the supplier? And do you trust them?
So when you turn that box of cereal or bottle of juice over and read the back, there's a lot of information there that's required by law that's helpful to the consumer.
And then question 4. Are you buying this item online? The supply chain can be shrouded in more mystery when shopping online. So how did you find out about this website? Is it reputable?
But it depends on how you find that supplier.
And finally 5. Complain. Okay, it's not a question, but the Food Fraud Prevention Think Tank says if the retailer is legit, they will want to know.
I think manufacturers can be the victims as well.
The FDA also relies on consumers' reports.
In recent decades, fraudsters have gotten more sophisticated in the techniques they use to fake the food products. And that means that our detection methods and our test methods and standards have to be better at detecting fraud.
That's why the U.S. Pharmacopoeia Convention provides a framework for organizations to detect its vulnerabilities.
We have food fraud mitigation guidance, so it is a supply chain risk
I mean, they're emphasizing, what they're trying to do, but
management too, to really take a look at which ones are the more risky products suspected to be adulterated.
Sometimes it feels like this is
but 2%?
Not that big of a deal. But the more fraudsters are able to achieve, the more we end up paying in the end as consumers.
These cases rarely result in criminal penalties. If you want to be like a drug dealer and import heroin and you get arrested on a large scale, you're going to go to jail. But if you can make $80 million importing adulterated honey, and then you're going to get a slap on the wrist and some fines, why wouldn't you do food instead of drugs if there's no basically criminal downside to it? So as long as we don't take it seriously.
Facts, indeed.
Why should the perpetrators take it seriously?
One more time for that one.
What we want is the food industry just...
And then you're going to get a slap on the wrist and some fines. Why?
Really take a look at which ones are the more risky products suspected to be adulterated.
Sometimes it feels like this is not that big of a deal. But the more fraudsters are able to achieve, the more we end up paying in the end as consumers.
These cases rarely result in criminal penalties. If you want to be like a drug dealer and import heroin and you get arrested on a large scale, you're going to go to jail. But if you can make $80 million importing adulterated honey, and then you're going to get a slap on the wrist and some fines, why wouldn't you do food instead of drugs if there's no basically criminal downside to it? So as long as we don't take it seriously, why should the perpetrators take it seriously?
There it is. There it is. That's some of that crime that's going on just every day of the week, essentially. Right there in a nutshell, that is hypocrisy in the laws again, and you got to wonder why. If they know so much about it, then why? Why is it just a slap on the wrist? That's crazy. You're talking about 80% of the United States imports, food imports, gets only 2% of it gets checked. Only 2% of that, of 80% of its food imports. You see, and then they give a small slap on the wrist for something like that.
What we want is the food industry just to be focused on making food and not have to worry about looking over our shoulder, checking different suppliers. And that's going to impact more food being produced, better food, safer food, less expensive food. There's plenty of things for us to worry about in the world today, and food fraud should not be one of those.
Snacks could be at risk of being banned because of their
All right.
ingredients.
So this is some of the
Of the food that
chemicals
we eat.
now. This is some of the
The food that we
chemicals.
eat. But
Yeah, sorry about that. This is some of the chemicals now that have been banned from the EU that are in the US on the shelves, but the EU don't want it and haven't had it. So check
hey,
this
some
out.
of your favorite snacks could be at risk of being banned because of their ingredients. At least 5 states are proposing these laws that prohibit the use of certain ingredients and color additives, which help preserve the food that we eat, but have also been linked to health issues, including cancer. Stephanie Haynes joins us live to explain. Stephanie, I see Flamin' Hot Cheetos here. My dad's going to be devastated. What snacks are we specifically talking about here?
Yeah, look, these bills have quite a long way to go, but it is the stuff that you really reach for when you have the munchies, including, those spicy chips and crackers, chewy candies, and then even some of your favorite baking supplies like frostings and even sprinkles have some of this stuff that states basically want these food companies to replace the components of with something else. So that could change the recipe. That's at the very least what they want them to do. And so let's take a look at least these 5.
So keep in mind, the U.S. still doesn't have universal health care. So you know how important your health is. But then what do they have on the shelves that other countries have banned, citing health risk?
States, New York, Illinois, California, Missouri, Washington are all trying to introduce or try to pass laws on some of these ingredients.
And this is an election year also. So I hope whatever party you're voting for or whatever candidates you're voting for, that they're up on this.
Which are a mouthful. It sounds like your high school chemistry class. So we're going to give you a breakdown of some of the highlights here. One of the ingredients is brominated vegetable oil. Now, that is one that the FDA has already proposed banning, and that is in the bill that California has already passed that'll go into effect in 2027. BVO, as it's called, used to be in a lot of sodas and sports drinks, but it's since been removed from most of them. And then red dye 3.
Yeah, but that's just California that is up on that. One state out of 51 states, that's crazy.
Gives food and drinks that bright red cherry color. Red dye 3 gives food and drinks that bright red cherry color. That's also being actively reviewed by the FDA. Several of these ingredients are already banned in Europe. And so we spoke to a nutritionist about this. Listen.
So if Europe can do it, we certainly can too, but it does take more money. And it takes really this dedication to saying we're not going to allow for this low quality stuff to keep entering into our systems.
So critics like the Consumer Brands Association say this is really stuff that's going to supersede the FDA. It's just going to confuse consumers and reduce their confidence in the brands. And also that these food companies really go through a strict process to try to get healthy, safe food on the shelf for you, the consumer. We reached out to a bunch of parent companies of brands and are waiting to hear back, Marky.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list here. Gatorade, M&M, Swedish Fish. As long as they don't touch my Junior Mints, I will somehow survive. Stephanie Haynes, thanks so much.
Foods. I would say they're the artificial food dyes you're going to see most frequently.
These synthetic dyes make our food look good, but are they good for us? That's what Thomas Galligan is asking.
These food dyes,
all these, they've been banned in Europe also. Check it out.
Are marketing tools for the food industry.
Thomas is a scientist.
All the European Union countries have universal health care, and they have a secondary option too, which is private if you want to pay for it,
Who studies food additives for the U.S. Food and Health Watchdog Center for Science in the Public Interest.
They are used to make food look more visually appealing so that you and I, as consumers, want to buy them. but they really offer no benefit to the consumer.
But we like food to look good. So what is the concern about having these artificial dyes in our food?
These synthetic food dyes can cause or exacerbate neurobehavioral problems in some kids. Things like inattention, hyperactivity, sleeplessness, restlessness, irritability, these sorts of things.
That's why some other countries have changed how these products are sold.
Since 2010, in the EU, there's been a requirement that foods that contain certain
Since 2010, that's 14 years ago.
synthetic food dyes, like the three that we're discussing, neurobehavioral problems in some kids. Things like inattention, hyperactivity, sleeplessness, restlessness, irritability, these sorts of things.
That's why some other
And those kind of things, as a parent, you pay for. As a family, if you have a child that has all those things, irritable, or just any type of
to the consumer.
But we like
Check this
food
out.
to look good. So what is the concern
So they have possibly behavioral consequences.
about having these artificial dyes in our food?
These synthetic food dyes can cause or exacerbate neurobehavioral problems in
Neurobehavioral problems. Neurobehavioral problems.
some kids. Things like inattention, hyperactivity, sleeplessness, restlessness, irritability, these sorts of things.
That's why some other countries have changed how these products are sold.
Since 2010, in the EU, there's been a requirement that foods that contain certain synthetic food dyes, like the three that we're discussing, actually have to have a
He's only discussing 3 of them.
warning label to warn consumers about the effects that they have on children's behavior.
Thomas would like to see warning labels here too.
Not everybody is going to be impacted by synthetic food dyes. Canadian consumers should be offered the opportunity to protect their kids.
Right. So he's in Canada advocating for that change as well.
It's just like European consumers.
We want to see what those warning labels look like. Time to order some popular products from overseas.
Stick that candy in the cart.
We've got M&M's, Skittles, Doritos,
Wow.
Nerds gummy clusters, and Kool-Aid.
I never seen Kool-Aid over here.
The Canadian versions of the same products.
Nerds. Yeah. But wait a second. Okay. I think they're about to say, but in certain countries, if they are sold, the ingredients are different. Hold on. Let me just bring that back a tiny bit.
Doritos, Nerds gummy clusters, and Kool-Aid. The Canadian versions of the same products have one or more of the synthetic dyes, Allura Red, Tartrazine, or Sunset Yellow FCF, also known as Red Dye Number 40, Yellow 5, and Yellow 6.
Okay, that should do it. We'll see what's in those products when they get here.
While we wait for our international snack shipment to be delivered, we're heading to Niagara College Culinary School to find out what's in these dyes.
Many of the artificial colors are actually petroleum byproducts.
Professor
Petroleum byproduct. What? Hold on.
and food scientist Amy Prue School to find out what's in these dyes.
Many of the artificial colors are actually petroleum byproducts.
Petroleum byproducts. Does that sound good?
Professor and food scientist Amy Prue shows us 2 of them.
Can you show me the Allura Red? What does it look like?
So oftentimes people are mystified by what different food additives look like. It is not a big mystery. It looks like a small, dark red powder.
Same goes for Sunset Yellow.
As you can guess, it gives a
Matt, what kind of food look like that? Hold on.
very bold yellow color.
Oh, wait a second. That must be for the Fritos and all that. Now that I think about it, hold on, let's bring it
So
back.
oftentimes people are mystified by what different food
Cheetos.
additives look like.
Fritos.
It is not a big mystery. It looks like a small, dark red powder.
Same goes for
And that looks like the same powder they use in that thing called hot Takis, if I'm correct.
Sunset Yellow.
As you can guess, it
Now, what you think that's for? What you think this is for? This got to be Cheetos and Fritos and all those little orange ones, chips, right? Right? Or maybe something else, maybe some candy pieces. Candy? I don't know. Yeah.
gives a very bold yellow color.
Amy says these synthetic dyes are also more stable during manufacturing.
Boiling the sugar for candy is done at extremely high temperatures. And as such, we need to have heat-stable colors that are not going to scorch out and burn in that process.
Okay,
That doesn't sound great.
it's here. Our delicious delivery from Europe has arrived.
Lots of good stuff.
Sure enough, there's a warning label about those synthetic dyes on some of the products.
Kool-Aid, okay. So this one does have the Allura Red, but also a warning label.
The warning label is in multiple languages, saying Allura Red.
I never seen no tag like this, but maybe actually have I seen it once? Maybe
May affect activity and attention in children. The Nerds Gummy Cluster.
But I think here in Denmark, it's completely banned. When you see a product like this with a label on it, that's rare. That is so rare.
Have the dyes and the warning too. But for the rest of the snacks, no warning, because Allura Red, Tartrazine, and Sunset Yellow are nowhere to be found.
Yeah, so they're not the ones that are made overseas in the EU don't even have those chemicals in it that they're looking for.
None of the synthetic additives in the Skittles.
You're gonna want to bring your hand right. And the warning too. But for the rest of the snacks, no warning, because Allura Red, Tartrazine, and Sunset.
And how, and see, the thing about this is that this conversation has been going on for decades now. As you heard, these products, the three main products they were discussing, they've been banned in the EU in 2010. That's 10 years ago. I'm sorry, what, 2000? Did they say 2000? Yeah, they said 2010. That's 14 years ago. 14 years ago, the EU banned these products with those three main chemicals that they're trying to wipe out, that they say have neurological and other effects on kids, right? But yeah, in any case, here we go. But so here's proof of that, because when you buy some of the products that they do sell from the US, when they do sell them in the EU, they change the ingredients. So they just had to order some from the EU, and it's like it doesn't have those chemicals in it.
Yellow.
Only in the US does it have the chemicals when they made in the US.
Are nowhere to be found.
None of the synthetic additives in the Skittles.
You're gonna want to bring your hand right up. Your pointer finger and your thumb are gonna hold the base. We're taking our treats to a cooking class in Toronto.
Let's cut that in half first, and it's a lot easier to cut.
Testing what these kids,
I brought a bunch of snacks.
and their parents think about the warnings we see.
In the EU, they require warning labels, not in Canada. What do you think about that?
I think the warning labels should be there. And then it's the choice of the shopper to pick it up or not. The more information we have, the better decisions we can make.
That's funny because people in the EU, they don't seem to agree. They're not like, it's up to the shopper. They're like, no, nobody's going to have it. And here's why. Because if it's up to the shopper, then what's going to happen with the healthcare system? You see what I mean? So they do already have universal healthcare, and then also private on the side for people that want to pay, right? But here's the thing. If you have more people to pay for, because you're pumping the food with synthetic products with, chemicals and these kind of things, they're obviously going to get sicker faster. And then who's going to pay for it? You see? So they're kind of intertwined, your health and these food, the food regulations, who's the federal, in the US, it's the FDA, right? They're supposed to regulate this stuff. So how can there be over a decade difference in banning these products? They've had 10 years. You know how resourceful, how lucky you have to be to have 10 years of research on a product to be, or in anything, and be able to make a decision on that. 10 years. In this case, it's 14 years. 14 years they've been banned in Europe. That's 14 years the U.S. federal, the FDA has had to take all the other research done and apply it to some policy. That's crazy.
So why not provide that information?
And even in Canada, similar dynamic going on.
And what do they think about the other snacks from Europe that don't have the dyes in them at all?
To me, it's obvious that decision can be made to exclude them, which shows that it's not necessary.
It's shocking because obviously these companies, parent companies, are global. Why are they producing on purpose two different sets of products?
On purpose. Why are they, what did she just say? Why are they producing on purpose two separate products? That's exactly what she said.
It's shocking because obviously these companies, parent companies, are global. Why are they producing on purpose two different sets of products?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. People Kool-Aid is the bomb. Yeah, well, yeah, we see how it's gonna go. I mean, I would like to talk to somebody that's been drinking Kool-Aid for 50 years, I mean, and just find out if that's all they've been drinking, but we'll see. I don't know, bro. I've never seen a Kool-Aid pack over here in a grocery store, so they definitely don't have it. But let me see here. Purple Kool-Aid is the bomb. You know, there, see, it's the food coloring, bro. You might want to check into it. Me myself, I don't. As a kid, I think I had some Kool-Aid, man. As a kid in the U.S., you know what I'm saying? But I was always a juice kind of guy. I was kind of like Dave Chappelle, like, damn, what is the, Nah, I was like, what is Kool-Aid? I wasn't like, what is juice? It was the opposite. I was like, what is Kool-Aid? I was like, people drink Kool-Aid. It's so funny, man. But yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little experiment here with you. We're gonna look at these now. And I want you guys to tell me what you notice about the differences. There we go, there's some Doritos, if you got it. Ooh, look at them flying all over the place.
Oh my God, the color. Oh, look at the color difference.
Canadian one. Canadian, European. Canadian, European.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys see?
This one looks like really bland, but this one looks like full of flavor. I want to taste it.
Okay, take one of each and tell me what you notice about them.
They're better.
Which are
Look, they even got these, look, they got the kids out for the test. So if you're watching this and you don't learn from this, I don't know how. I mean, are these kids actors? Let's see here.
Really bland, but this one looks like full of flavor. I want to taste it.
Okay, take one of each and tell me what you notice about them.
They're better.
Which are better, the European ones?
European.
Isn't that interesting? They just taste better.
Isn't that interesting? The European one is better. The one, that means the one manufactured in Europe tastes better. It looks blander, but it tastes better.
These are better. This one looks like really bland, but this one looks like full of flavor. I want to taste it.
Okay, take one of each and tell me what you notice about them.
As an American, that almost hurts to hear that, but you got to get over it and get down with the facts, yo.
They're better.
Which are better, the European ones?
European.
Isn't that interesting? They just taste better.
These are better.
Oh. So the European ones taste better, 2 for 2. What do you think?
European.
Really?
Wow.
Damn! Yo! Even the little sister came back on it like, Yes, she did. The young sister came back positive.
More tastier. Like, even though
Which are better, the European ones?
European.
Yes, she did.
Isn't that interesting? They just taste better.
These are better.
Oh. So the European ones taste better, 2 for 2. What do you think?
European.
You ain't lying.
Wow.
They're more tastier. Like, even though it doesn't look like it has more like
They just rubbed it in now. They're more tastier, I expect the kid to come out and be like, and you know what? And don't take it personal, y'all.
cheese on it, It has more flavor though.
Here's how all of the treats we bought look. The ones from Canada on the left, the ones we ordered from Europe on the right.
Health Canada says it's reviewed the research on the safety of these dyes and can't conclude they cause behavioral problems in
Yo, they can't. Yeah, right. Here you go. Come on. They can't conclude.
kids.
Hold on.
The
let me
U.S.
get that
Food and
again.
Drug.
The ones from Canada on the left, the ones we ordered from Europe on the right.
Don't expect the government to admit much.
Health Canada says it's reviewed the research on the safety of these dyes and can't conclude they cause behavioral problems in kids. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration and a World Health Organization committee agree. Health
Well, what a surprise, you know. But check this out. I mean, just think about this. Can you trust them on that? Can you trust them on that? How can there be two different sets of information out there? There's already two different sets of products, right? The children had the products, and the children said the ones that looked blander taste better, and those were the ones from the EU, and they compared the same exact product sold by the same company. The companies made two different versions of the products because of some chemicals that they have to put in it, food coloring. Some of it's dangerous. Some of it, scientists say, causes neurological issues within children. Yes, they do. Now, if that's true, I mean, they went over some of the symptoms, you know, hyperactiveness and these kind of things, right? But if true, then that constitutes a health problem. Who's going to pay for that in a country where there's not universal health care? Who's going to pay for the health problem? So if the dyes aren't in fact in any way affecting you, you might want to, or if there's a possibility as a consumer, you might want to think about it, especially when you have a vote, when it's time to vote too, because you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for it. Secondly, why would you want to eat something that someone else is saying, nah, man, it doesn't even taste as good? Why would you want to do that? What would the point be? And it's healthier, you know. That's what they're saying.
Canada also says that if new scientific information becomes available that shows an additive is not safe, they will no longer permit it.
They want a new study done. They want a new study, not just this study. This study, you know, the result isn't one we really, really like. So we want to make sure and do another study. And if that study says that it's no good, then we'll do something about it. Apparently, with this one, Canada is similar to the U.S. And so they're doing something completely different. These chemicals that they're discussing are banned in the EU.
Meantime, at McMaster University in Hamilton,
Hello, hi, Rosa.
Professor Waliul Khan and his research team
Here I'm a member of my team.
are studying the effect Allura Red could have on human cells
Essentially, we'll just be treating these cells with the dye.
and the effect of the dye on mice, too. We're here at lunchtime.
Study not good enough?
All right, Rosa, it's time to feed the mice.
Feeding time, okay.
All right, so what I have here is the Allura Red drinking water. And then in this cage here, you can see the Allura Red coated food.
In Professor Khan's recent study on mice, he found eating or drinking Allura Red once a week didn't have an impact. But ingesting the dye continuously for several weeks could harm gut health.
It is not beneficial for the health.
You're saying why take the chance?
Yes, I mean, it is not bad to avoid this food. I mean, it's not helping us.
Waliul says his findings point to the need for more research on humans, too,
We have to do some more studies.
not just mice.
Currently, the United States, 80 some odd percent of its imports for these kind of products, it's food imports, right? Only 2% of them get checked. 2%. So, and then this guy's saying, you know, they need more studies, but the information doesn't look like it's good information to get back. In other words, you know, the lab rats didn't do too well over time, right? They developed health issues. So Yeah, just something to think about.
But it's not just warnings. They've banned one ingredient in Europe that's still being fed to us.
I think that Canadian consumers certainly should be protected.
This is your marketplace. We're taking a closer look at what's in our food, revealing that warning labels are required in Europe for certain synthetic food dyes, but not here.
Pass me the flavoring.
We want to know, can we make some colorful candies that don't have these dyes? At Niagara College.
Yeah, for the folks that's just joining, from time to time, we like to do these comparisons on the EU and the US and how the laws might differ on different things, right? And that could be, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's social welfare, right? Sometimes it could be anything. It could be healthcare, and now we're talking about something that is connected to healthcare, and that is the foods and the chemicals that are banned from the EU versus the US.
Professor Amy Prue and her students are going to create some tasty treats for us with no synthetic dyes.
Amy, this is my favorite time of day, snack time. What's on the menu?
They're going to make some gummies, some lollipops, and some marshmallows.
But will the treats look good?
So this is a natural coloring agent, which we added in this one. This is made of turmeric and sunflower seeds.
While Amy's students whip up their candy creations, dietitian Allison Martinez dives into another food additive, one recently banned from food in the EU, titanium dioxide.
That's another component that's added to
Titanium dioxide. That doesn't sound nice. Hold on, let me see something. I'm gonna look this up real quick. Let me see here. Titanium dioxide. My God, man, what's up with this? Whew, this is something else. Titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide. Okay, let me see. Can y'all see this? Yeah, okay. Let me blow this up. Make this bigger for everybody to see. It says here in Wikipedia, titanium dioxide, also known as titanium oxide or titania, is the inorganic compound with the chemical formula TiO2. When used as a pigment, it is called titanium white pigment. Okay, so it's a food coloring. Wow, that is insoluble. It is a white solid that is insoluble in water. Insoluble, that means it doesn't break down, right? Insoluble. Let me see something. Sorry, my English sometimes gets, here it is, a little forgetful. Exactly, impossible to dissolve. It doesn't dissolve. Okay, that is some wild stuff right there. That is wild. So let me see here. Let's get back to this one now.
to make them whiter or brighter.
Titanium dioxide is allowed in food here in Canada. Sure enough, we find it in many products. But it's not in the European versions of the same treats.
Why is this on your radar as a dietitian?
So it's in my radar just because of some of the issues that have been raised in Europe that have to do with potential health risks of its ingestion.
To find out why it was banned in the EU, we're heading to Parma, Italy. Well, virtually anyway. To the European Food Safety Authority, where we meet with Camilla Smeraldi. Hi, Camilla. Buon pomeriggio. Rosa from Marketplace. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Rosa. Good afternoon to you.
Camilla leads EFSA's food additive and flavorings team. They recently reevaluated titanium dioxide.
We could not really exclude the possibility that titanium dioxide can damage the DNA material, the genetic material in the cells.
Sounds serious.
The fact that it has this potential to damage the DNA material is not something that we should intentionally add to food.
So these are some foods that we purchased in Canada. The same foods are available.
Yeah, because they talking about your DNA. I mean, can you imagine somebody thinking, what difference does it make? They're just saying they can't rule out the fact that it might harm the DNA and then not even realize they're talking about your own DNA, your own body.
Available in the EU. All these Canadian versions have titanium dioxide. The European versions, of course, do not. What do you think about that?
Well,
Hey, this can all be changed with a vote, with some, the FDA. The FDA, y'all, like really, the FDA is at the helm of all of this. They're at the helm of it.
I think that there can be alternatives. As you have seen, we have the same products on the market.
Scientist Thomas Galligan wants health authorities here to follow the EU's lead.
We petitioned the FDA to ban titanium dioxide based on the same evidence that it was banned in the EU.
Do you think Health Canada should ban it as well then?
Yeah, I think that Canadian consumers certainly should be protected from titanium dioxide to the same degree that European consumers currently are.
Back at the cooking class, we ask parents what they think.
Hey, Andrea, how you doing? Good morning, Grand Rising.
What do you think when you hear it's been banned in the EU, but it's allowed in our foods?
We're no different than people in Europe, so why is it that we have different content of the...
Are you sure about that? He said, we're no different than people in Europe. Let's hear that again, because, I think people need to be reminded of that. Like, you have value. You have value. You're worth it. You're worth it. So if you're worth it, why does the government think differently in the EU than in the US or Canada, for this example? But in this case, it's Canada and the US. They have the same issue with the FDA, with the failure of recognition of these dyes, in the food, and other issues with the food consumption.
In class, we ask parents what they think.
What do you think when you hear it's been banned in the EU, but it's allowed in our foods?
We're no different than people in Europe, so why is it that we have different...
Why is it like that with the healthcare? Why is it like that with the educational system? And why is it like that with food products and and safety?
The content of the products, I think it's a great question for Health Canada.
When it comes to the food
Why is it like that in Canada?
additive titanium dioxide, Health Canada tells us
Titanium dioxide is an insoluble chemical. It doesn't break down in the human body. It doesn't break down with natural substances. It's insoluble.
there is no conclusive scientific evidence that it's a concern for human health. A World Health Organization committee agrees. In the U.S., the FDA is currently reviewing the use of titanium dioxide in...
So the EU already banned them for like a lot of these products, for these chemicals, 10 to 14 years ago. And they did it based on research that they're leading the world in, by the way. And check this out. And the US just says, we don't think it's harming people, right? But then they show you that the same companies making Doritos, or the same companies making these products, they're still allowed to sell the product in the EU, but they have to use something else that's legal and not something that's been banned, right? And the companies do it, right? And then they show you the kids in America, right, eating the same product, eating the two, comparing the one made in the US versus the one made in the EU. And they say the one in the US looks better, but the one made in the EU tastes better, right? That's just what we reviewed. That's exactly what we reviewed. But the FDA is like, why do y'all think, why do you think people need food coloring? What could that be about? Why can't you just sell your product as it is so people know what they're buying? Right? Isn't that a typical way what you're buying by how it looks? And then they go out there and do something like throw color red on the meat to make the meat look redder, or throw the color red, or orange on some chips to make the chips look brighter, or whatever. I mean, what do y'all think about that? Is that really necessary? Is that where we at with it? Like, whose idea was that? Food coloring. And at the end of the day, why would you want anything on your product that's not actual food if it's supposed to be food? Food coloring is not food. Yeah, make it attractive marketing play. Yeah, exactly. True. But, at whose expense? At whose expense, Donnie? You know what I'm saying? But I agree. I agree.
Food.
So, where does all of that leave consumers?
Everybody has access to the same studies. How did EFSA and Health Canada come
Everybody has access to the same studies.
to two very different conclusions?
Pretty much
Reviewing the use of titanium dioxide in food.
So, where does all of that leave consumers?
Everybody has access to the same studies. How did EFSA and Health Canada come to two very different conclusions?
pretty much depends with which pair of eyes you look.
Reviewing the use of titanium dioxide in food.
So, where does all of that leave consumers?
Everybody has access to the same studies. How did EFSA and Health Canada come to two very different conclusions?
Pretty much depends with which pair of eyes you're looking into that. Which paper do you consider are relevant or not? When we're talking about something
They both can't be right, can they? One has to be wrong.
that's has no nutrition.
So yeah, it depends on whose eyes, that's for sure. But if you were a billionaire who made $1 billion last year off of selling food products with food coloring in them, and you knew that they were dangerous, but it gave you a market advantage in terms of how the food looks, who would you choose first, your pockets or the public's health? What would you choose? What would you be concerned with anyway? I mean, do you think that the U.S. in terms of business, right, particularly with these kind of things, food, consumer things that consumers really need for their day to day, right? Don't you think that companies have a really high rate of responsibility, like they should? Like it really is a responsibility that it's got to be job one, to make sure that foods are safe, but also that you're getting the product that they claim to be selling. You see, because after all, food coloring is not food. So why would you even need to color your food if the food is fine, if the food is good? Like, who says that a good chip is only a good chip when it looks a certain way? Or who said that, meat is a piece of steak is only a good steak if it's red looking, if it looks bright red? Who made that up? So in a way, it's kind of like false advertising too, yeah, but here,
Value.
let's listen, let's hear this out, and then the panel's open for a little bit just to see who want to hop up.
That we intentionally add to food, and that's our assessment.
Camilla notes that as more research is done, their scientific opinion could change. We asked the companies why include these food additives in their Canadian products. The makers of these products do not respond. The others tell us their
What? Kool-Aid didn't respond? Uh-oh. Kool-Aid is in trouble. Let's hear this
include
again.
these food additives in their Canadian products. The makers of these products do not respond.
Kool-Aid and Doritos. Yo, you can buy Doritos over here. So they're asking, how come Doritos is selling two different products, one in the US and one in the EU? Why are they willing to, how are they having success selling the same product? But because people buy Doritos over here. Trust me, I see it every day, right? Why do they have to look a certain way? Why do they have to have food coloring in it for it to be good? Like,
Camilla notes that as more research is done, their scientific opinion could change. We asked the companies why include these food additives in their Canadian products.
I think so, Donnie. Even when it comes to food, public health. I mean, well, when not just food, but air too. Pollution of the air. But I look at this as pollution of the food. You know what I'm saying? Like, you not only have these chemical issues in the American products, right? Not just the food coloring, but you got issues of flat out fraud. I mean, come on, what did they put in they put something in some product? It was called wood pulp. Yeah, wood pulp. That's shaded down pieces of wood where you extract the pulp from it, and they put it in a food. They're putting non-food stuff in food in the first place. Then the second issue is the food coloring uh, chemicals, right? That's the second issue, and these products have been banned in the EU, and the same companies are willing to make a different product just to sell in the EU and are doing it and having great success. So why do they need it in the US products? Especially, here's another thing to think about. You're talking about public health should be a priority, right, Donnie? Exactly. Well, then is there a public health care system? Who's going to pay for the bad health of the chemicals? Who's going to pay for that? Right now, the United States, in terms of its foreign imports, even on top of that, and knowing the shit that they sell, check this out: the foreign imports, foreign imports, they only checking 2% of it anyway when it comes in of European products. But then it's not. You can't always think that the problem is the European products coming in, but it should be checked. But 85%, 2% is being checked of 85% of its import food product. That's crazy. But in any case, it's producing this, bad products itself that other countries have banned. I mean, this is other countries. How many countries got universal health care? Not saying it's good in all cases, but a lot of in the EU, they got universal and private. They got both things happening. What's up with the US? The US is the richest country on earth. Probably the richest country that's ever existed on earth too. You see what I'm saying? I mean, do you need food coloring if it causes a health problem? If it creates other behavioral issues like they say in kids, neurological issues, do you need it? Is it necessary? And also, why would the FDA ignore findings, not even have a public, they need to at least have a public discourse on the findings? Why did the EU, that EU is one of the US's biggest trading economic partners, so why did they ban these products if they're American, if that's the case? It's not something to be just overlooked so fast. It's actually it should be considered something real that people focus on. Like, if it's good for the goose, why isn't it good for the gander? Well, in this case, the counterpart to the US is said we're doing it differently. Here's how, right?
The makers of these products do not respond. The others tell us their products are safe and comply with all laws and Health Canada regulations. Some add that Health Canada and the European Food
Somehow I don't believe that answer. It follows all laws. Yeah, we know. That's what we talk about. The law.
Safety Authority have not conclusive
Change the laws, remove the chemicals, remove the food colorings, remove all the, get that out of the way, because you could still be doing. I mean, that's what they're talking about. They're saying it's not against the law. The EU has banned it already, and the answer from the Canadian folks is, oh, it's not illegal.
Found concerns for human health with titanium dioxide.
Food companies do not.
Titanium dioxide, a non-solvable, it doesn't break down. It won't break down through natural causes. It won't break down in your body. It won't break down just outside anywhere. It won't break down.
Need to wait.
It's insoluble. So what is it? Insoluble? Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Let's go.
Doritos to candy.
Throw them in there.
And more.
Okay.
We're checking out some colorful
that we intentionally
concerns for human health with titanium dioxide.
Food companies do not
insoluble.
need to wait for regulations. I'd like them to make the choice to reformulate their products to get rid of titanium dioxide and synthetic food dyes and use better alternatives for the good of public health.
Back at Niagara College, our synthetic dye-free sweets are ready. Now it's time for the big test.
I want you guys to taste test these for us.
This is another taste test. They're going to be comparing the products, the companies that produce two different products, one for the EU and one for the US.
What do you think, Nara?
It tastes like fruity.
Still
It's
yummy.
actually really good.
Still good.
I like the lollipop the most.
Would you be disappointed though if you opened the package and it wasn't like these really bright colors?
No.
These kids say no synthetic dyes are needed since it all
Who's going to look at this and say, you know what, we need a synthetic dye? But the companies have done that.
Comes down to just one thing.
Taste. You're gonna have to save room for lunch.
It all comes down to just one thing: taste. These kids said that the products that they ate, when they had an opportunity to taste both versions, they said the EU version tastes better. They talking about Doritos, candy, all types of stuff. You see what I mean? So yeah, I don't know who wants to hop up on the panel, but for a minute, the link is out there. Here's the link. Let me see here. This is the link to it. If anybody wants to hop up now, you could talk about anything you want. But also if you got a comment about what we've just been discussing here too, that's also great, because then we can build on that. But we're discussing and it's an election year, folks, for the U.S. So keep that in mind. This is an FDA issue. This is the Food and Drug Administration issue. Why are they selling products in the U.S. that have been banned 10 to 14 years already in the EU? Why are they doing that? And then why are the same companies that are selling these products in the U.S. willing to change their ingredients so that it fits the EU standards, right? Meaning, i.e., removing the food colorings and all these things that have been deemed to be dangerous biologically, right? In multiple ways, not just biological, like your liver might fall out or something like that, but also neurological, your brain, your behavior. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's what this one is about. I will hop, but yeah, I hear you, bro. No worries. But I'm gonna wait here for a second now. Let me just throw a little bit of tunes on. I'm gonna wait. Whoever want to hop up. I'm gonna be here for I don't know, who knows, 5-10 minutes. Who knows? But if you want to hop up. Otherwise, I'm gonna close out. But let me throw this on. See what it do. Yeah. All right, yeah.
If you ain't talking and you don't know how, say Shady Groove's gonna show you how. Just move your feet or get out your seat. You got to listen to the sounds of the funky beat. The first thing that we like to say when you grooving with us, we like to say, hey, to the big brother Smitty and Wood. Hey, to everybody from out of Wakefield, yeah. Hey, to the sweet lady Linda and Lily. Hit me one time, fellas. Wherever you like to say, hey, to the big brother Shine and Tony. Hey, to the big brother Gifford and Bird. Hey, to everybody from TC2. One time, fellas. Wherever you like to say, hey, to the big brother people and Bird. Everybody from outside your neck. To everybody jamming up the wake it up. To the pocket fellas. Those who are from the ladies and the gents at the party on the weekend having fun, y'all. Don't do it for the ladies and the gents at the party on the weekend having fun now. Now all the fellas in the band, won't you lend a helping hand to the ladies in the party, working that bottom, y'all. Rap sock people can groove now. I said what? Special dedication going out there 5 miles of Wakefield, y'all. Nothing comes to this. And also got very special dedication going to everybody from TC, y'all. And that highway crew. Say what now? Hey there, Wood.
All right, everybody. Yeah, I'm going to shut this one down. I appreciate everybody coming out. And for the listeners that didn't catch it, you can catch the replay. Yeah, it has been a good one. I'll be back. It's been a busy week. with the company I work with, just finishing up some things, and so the work week has been pretty much hectic for me. But this week coming, I will be back on the normal schedule. So I appreciate everybody's patience with that. Today, we've been discussing the health issues of food contaminants and food colorings, these kind of things, and doing a comparison on some of the things that have been banned in the EU but are still being sold on the stores in the stores in the U.S. Hey, Andrea, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be here for a second. But I see you hopped up. You had a couple moments.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did Did you get a
Yeah.
chance to check it out?
I
Some of
didn't. I,
the
I didn't see the whole your whole video, but when you talking about food here in America, the billionaires know they can get the real stuff, right? They don't have to. They ain't gonna. They can get all the good health care they want.
right.
Everybody else is at their mercy, right?
Yeah,
They're
it
not gonna.
seems so.
Yeah, they're not. They're not gonna care. I mean, that's why the health care is not good here. They don't. I mean, they're the ones who stand to make a profit. So the more of all this other stuff they can put in our food, the better it is for them. And hell, we can't afford the health care to go get better. So,
But what do you think when you hear that, like, okay, the EU banned those chemicals, but then the company
mhm.
said, okay, well, we'll make the same product different so that we can sell it in your country, and then they sell it there. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I mean, like I said, I don't know what Americans here are interested in eating. I mean, this is a lot of stuff that you just have to change overall. And if they're not going to do it, then you're gonna have to figure out a way. Just don't buy it. I mean, if it get, I think if we just all stop for a moment and said, you know what, this food is killing us. Yeah, it's cheaper. Yeah, it may taste better. Uh, but at the same time, if you don't want to take the efforts to make your life better, I mean, yeah, should the Food and Drug Administration do that? Sure. But if they're not going to do that, then the onus comes on us to make it happen, right? I
Right.
mean, people. I don't know if
Definitely.
I don't know if the people over there were protesting or said we're not going to eat it and stop buying it. I don't know. I don't know what brought
You know
along the
what?
change.
You know what? I think it is. I think it's like, well, I don't know if it's the whole issue, right? But I think one part of it is that the EU is made up. How the EU was formulated, it was made up of separate countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these countries were already used to kind of having their own, Food and Drug Administration, for example, right? They're used
Mm-hmm.
to all having their own and doing their own research, right? So when they but the difference is they shared their knowledge with each other. So
Mm-hmm.
it spread, and now they're still sharing their knowledge with each other, but it's even stronger now because the EU has just become a secondary arm for all of them, a way of strengthening, right, that commitment that they made. So they're looking out when they look at each other. Like, for example, a Danish person looks at themselves different than a French person. So they're going to want to, they're competing to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And education and health, this is how they're competing socially with each
Mm-hmm.
other. So, but when one
Mm-hmm.
comes up with a good formula, they adopt it, right? But the US is such a big
Mm-hmm.
country, it doesn't often change quick. So,
Nope.
and it doesn't have anybody big enough to change it independently. That's what I think it
Mm-hmm.
is. Whereas so within the EU, they can close ranks on each other. But who can close
Mm-hmm.
ranks on the US?
Yeah. I mean,
So I don't know
it's
if
just
that
gonna have
made
to be
any
the
sense.
people, right? The people gonna have to
Yeah, I
have
think
enough.
so. I think
Yeah.
so. The American
It's gonna have
people,
to be the people. We're the only ones who can get out here. Mm-hmm.
but they did produce some
Because it's not
surveys
going to. I mean,
to give to say, hey, you could use this information, you could use these surveys,
mm-hmm.
you could use this data that we
Mm-hmm.
collected. That's what the data that we use to ban it in the EU. Here you go. You can look at it and you can do the same if you like.
Mm-hmm. Well,
If you
I don't
like.
know if that's me or you going out, but let me.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
you.
I don't know. BB. Okay. Yeah, they just You know, in America, you know, we unfortunately, you know, the way things taste is more important than what it's doing to our bodies, right? I mean, that's all of it. I don't care. You know, the sugar is good. You know, hey, the more the merrier, right? And unfortunately, you know, we have to do something about that because they're not going to do it for us. You know, if we stop eating all those foods and stuff, I bet you they'll make a change then.
I think
You
so.
know.
Oh, definitely. And I think it's coming. I mean, because the interesting thing about the US is that there's multiple serious issues, you know, for some reason. Like
Mhm.
you got education, you have healthcare, right? Those are one of them. Then
Mhm.
you have just overall like uh fairness on a job in the job market, you know, how you treat it as an employee, who has certain rights and benefits and who doesn't as an employee, you know, these kind of
Mhm.
all real and stressing issues in the US, right? Well, it seems
Mhm.
like Americans, if they just say right now what they want, they could probably get a lot of things if they say it, you know, if they say it,
Mhm.
because who can say no? Who's in a position to
Right.
say no once the
Right.
data is out there?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they're not. You know, it's just we're. I guess we're. Just, I would say we're probably maybe a little bit more lazy than you know. We'll fight for other things that they deem more important than our health and well-being. I'm not saying there ain't people out here trying to do all that, trying to tell people to stop eating sugar and all that stuff. There's a lot of
They're trying.
information. There's information out there. You have to go. You have to want to do it, right? Even
Right.
if you can have all the information in the world, you have to want to do a thing because nobody can make you in that big sense of the word. I mean, you know, um, shop on the perimeter of the store. You ain't got to go down aisles and all that kind of stuff, right? You
What
have choices.
are there any political parties like talking about this? Like the
I
Democrats or the Republicans or
I don't hear that. That's not going to be their focus, right? They care to kick the same can up and down the road: abortion and who is the immigration.
yeah, because it seems like with the food they might agree, right? I mean, maybe I don't know why would either party disagree, but it's an easier choice, right? Than abortion, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but if they're in it, if they're depending on which group, if they're in on it with the makers of whatever, they're not gonna do that, right?
Oh, right, yeah, the big money, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. The
because a
funding
lot
of
of them. I mean,
it.
if they took money out of politics, then you might see a different result. But
Mm,
when they said that corporations are people too, and
mhm,
absolve them of a lot of the responsibility for the products that they make, hey, it's, no holds barred. So you
mhm,
got all these companies contributing to these campaigns and stuff. Ain't nobody on both sides. Ain't nobody going like they gonna cut off the cash cow. They ain't gonna want to do that.
mm,
So they're
mm.
just as so those areas are not gonna.
Like
They're
campaign
not gonna.
reform.
Yeah, they're not gonna jump in on all that because it's not gonna be beneficial to them.
It seems like to me, like in the U.S., it seems like the corporations have more power than the maybe I don't
Then the
know
people do. Yeah.
than the people do on this regard. In this regard, yeah, they seem like they have
Mm-hmm.
more power with the health of the society. You know, in general, you know,
Mm-hmm.
contaminants, and food and stuff like this. It just seems like they are behind. You know,
Yeah. Because you remove the lobbyists, if you remove all this influence that these politicians have, you're not. We may get somewhere, but with all this influence, and if you're not setting term limits, and you got all these folks who are well into their 70s and 80s and 90s still out there,
hmm
uh, out there making, because if you look at, just for instance, for the Republican Party, they're majority white, and then on top of that, they're majority old white men, right? Who are
hmm
still out here trying to affect policy as it concerns everybody else. Well, you've expended the majority of your years, so why don't you move out the way and let people who come in with a more progressive mind, who are looking into these things, who are trying to understand what's affecting America and how it's affecting its people, and go ahead and retire into the sun. But no, they don't do that. They want to maintain control as long as possible because they're the ones really. I mean, you got some of these young people who are fighting, they against abortion and also the kind of stuff, you got some, because, a lot of it comes from the church you go to, right? Has nothing to do with anything else,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So when you try to present that out, oh, well, God said, well, you move God out of the equation, and then what you gonna do? What are you gonna say? How are you gonna justify your anti-abortion policies if you remove that? Because everybody doesn't believe in God. So are we to assume that you're telling me now your religion takes precedence over everybody else's, right? So
Right.
that's all that is. So, so
Or
those
over
who,
people's bodies.
right. So
Basically.
if you're backed by a religious organization, do you really think you're going to go out there and speak against, be for abortion? No, you're not. It's not good for you. Now,
Yeah.
the Democratic Party, they are trying to do that because they understand that a woman's body is a woman's choice and all this stuff. But still,
Right.
that same can gets kicked every 4 years. They haven't resolved anything. They may have a state here or there, or the Supreme Court may have said such and such and such and such, and then you got some states just trying to apply some, really bad stuff about anything. I don't care what it is. They just try to apply really bad stuff about any and everything. And it's going to take the people to say, hey, we've had enough. We've had enough with all of y'all trying to tell us.
It seems like they can't. Seems like right now. I mean, it's just my opinion, but it seems kind of like politically, the U.S. gets stuck on instead of solving and changing issues, they get stuck fighting over issues for years and accomplish nothing to the point where a new issue comes up and they don't have time for it because they're still arguing about the old issues.
Exactly. And I think that's planned. I think that's purposeful, right? Because they have to have something to fight each other in these in these campaigns, and they have to have something. So they're not going to make it about religion. They're not going to do that, even though a lot of them have these religious, that's what's moving them. That's what they say, right? They say, I'm a this and I'm a that, but that hasn't done anything for anybody. And they know that. I mean, because if they really believe what they say their particular brand of religion is, they would not be behaving the way they are. So that they don't believe that. It's just another tool to keep people in line, right? That's all it is at the end of the day. Because they don't want to change anything. We're good where we are, and we'll fight this every 4 years. We'll come back and we'll have this fight, and ain't nothing gonna change. And like I said, it's gonna take the people to change those things.
Yeah, because I think, ultimately, abortion is important. I believe people should have the right to, over their own bodies to decide this kind of stuff, And but food definitely should be one they can move on, because who would disagree?
Those who are making money, who are getting money from those organizations. That's who's going to disagree. And that's a whole bunch of them, especially on the Republican side. Now, I don't know about the Democrats, but I'm just saying they're the ones who are notorious.
Haven't you seen that before? Have you done that before, where you saw something that looked really, really good, but when you ate it, it had no taste?
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's the most, well, I'm not casting aspersion on all white folks cooking, but a lot of their cooking don't taste good. A lot of they don't believe in putting spices and stuff. A lot of it don't taste good. So you don't want because we tell sometimes they'll have these little jokes out there where they told we don't want you to bring no food, just come, right?
Some of them spices are not good. Some of them spices, too many spices, can be. It depends on what you're doing, but I hear you.
And you have to know what you're doing. I mean, you can't just throw something in there just because you think it's going to make it taste better, right? I mean, when when you know what how to flavor make something taste flavorful, it's different than just throwing a spice on something. Because you can throw a spice on anything, and that doesn't mean you can put too much salt and it's going to make it taste horrible, right? You can put too much pepper, it's going to make it taste horrible. So you have to know the balance of how to do. You can't just throw stuff in there like, well, they said they like salt, and then you pile on the salt, and it's like, did you taste it? So that kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's all of that, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about, because they know what they're doing to our foods here. That's why they keep putting all these laws out here to keep you from suing. You can't do this. You can't sue doctors if you get. It's just getting out of hand, right? Because it's going to the benefit of the corporations. It's not to the benefit of of the people who make up the corporations that make the corporations successful. Because none of them could be anywhere that they are without people who work for them. None of them would be where they are. Big, little, doesn't matter how many people you have. If it weren't for the people you work with, or work for you or with you, or whatever, you would not be able to be the companies that you are. Now, if you're just a lone person who's selling some jewelry or something like that, that's different. But we ain't talking about that. We're talking about people who are working for these mega corporations who are not getting the benefit of having all this healthcare and everything else because it is so expensive. Your co-payments are expensive. Your out-of-pocket fees are expensive. And it hasn't gotten. And then they tell you these lies, especially here in America, where they say, like when I was working, the company I was working for, they would come up and say, when we had to renew for insurance, they would say, well, we have to charge more in this area and this area because there's more sick people. I said, you guys need to stop lying. And it's not because there's more sick people. You know that this area and that area has more wealthy people. So you think you can come over here and raise prices on healthcare because of that. I said, so stop lying and just say it. So you can feel better about how you're presenting what you're presenting, right? So I would question them on all that kind of stuff. I said, you guys know what you're doing. Don't play these games, right? Or people like when it was passed and it was called Obamacare and all that kind of stuff, right? They would come in there and they would use that word. I'm like, oh, no, we ain't gonna do that. What you're gonna do is call it the what is it called? What did they call it? American. It had its own name. I can't. What?
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. But I hear you. I understand you.
Yeah. So when they come and say Obama, they knew it would trigger a response in your head, right?
Obamacare, right?
It was called. That's the term. That's the term they used, but it actually had a real name.
Right.
American,
it had a real. It was the
goddamn.
United States People's.
It's American Health.
Exactly.
Anyway, they didn't want to call it that.
Yeah,
they didn't want to call it that.
Obamacare,
Yeah, they would say Obamacare, and they knew it would trigger something. And I would tell them, if you say that one more time, you need to go back out that front door because you know why you're saying that, and you know the feelings it brings up in people. So if you're going to keep using that, I would have to be the one to push back. Take your material, go back out that front door because we ain't gonna be playing those kind of games here. Don't do that. And they would just look at me like, oh, we're sorry. Well, you should be sorry. Stop it. You know that healthcare is helping people. People can't afford coming over here on a job and affording this. You know that that's helping people. So don't do that no more.
Hey, look, think about this. People could argue against public, universal health care for the public, right? They can argue against that, but at the same time, they can eat insoluble food products. They can eat insoluble products in their food.
Yeah.
Foods that don't break down in the environment or in your body, but could argue against universal health care.
It was Affordable Care Act. That's what it was called.
Affordable Care Act. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Affordable Care. It was a normal name, and they turned it to Obamacare. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right about that. There's, like I said, there's stuff that they know that they're doing. I was listening to some YouTube video about these guys who were talking about how a lot of this started. And I think if I'm not mistaken, the doctor's name was Pritikin or something like that. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. And they didn't want, from my understanding, if I'm getting it right, they didn't want. The reason why they pushed all these grains and all this other kind of stuff outside of being in cahoots with other people is they said if women ate too much meat, it would make their sex drive crazy. So they didn't want women eating a lot of meat. So they push this other, the way the pyramid is, all this high carb, how this, yeah. Right. So, and, so they're trying to say how religion has made its footprint into, you name it, it's there. Right. And that's what people are pushing back on. When you find out these things, you start pushing back on the understanding of where people are getting this information from, right? Some of this stuff is just so ridiculous. on his face. It's just so ridiculous. But until you find out that information, you wouldn't know that they was doing out, came to those conclusions like that, right?
Right. Yeah, true. If you're not
So,
involving yourself in the conversation and staying up to date with the conversation, then you wouldn't know what anybody says at the end of the day. And I
yeah,
think that's the overall thing about being concerned. Like people that needs to be reflected. Their concern needs to be reflected in how up to date they are on the information with this kind of stuff with healthcare, and the
yeah,
food administration, drug and food administration, it's like people are just not, I think people don't have, it's, I hate to sound cliche or sound conspiratorial, but to some degree, I believe that even though we just watched the media break down, I mean, a lot of what we watched was from CBS or just, news outlets that people know that people watch already. But I think what's going on is the conversation is so infrequent, it's not being heard. In other words,
mm-hmm,
more exciting stories take the forefront that may be less consequential, right?
mm-hmm,
But I'm not saying something like Trump isn't worth following, but it seems like other news takes the background to it also.
mm-hmm,
And I don't know, man. I don't like to sound conspiratorial, but to me, it seems like the news media can push some of these things,
yeah,
themselves. They can just get behind it themselves, and just say, "Hey, people need to have the conversation,"
yeah,
or who? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not.
yeah.
Maybe I'm
Like for instance, this is one. So back in the day when you had an ulcer, right?
Mhm.
What was the first thing we were taught or we were told? That you had to stop eating salt, you had to stop doing this and stop doing that, right? Okay, and then the doctor then the doctor kept doing his research and he found out that an ulcer is just bacteria.
Mhm.
It's nothing more than that. And so he gave himself one to prove his point that it could be cured with antibiotics or whatever, right? They laughed him to
Mhm.
scorn. He went through all, you name it, they did it to him. They discredited him, did all that kind of stuff because they were making money on all these drugs that they put out there to help you get, cure or maintain your ulcer, just manage
Right.
it.
Right.
But they took him through the ringer before they came to admit, yeah, what he said was true. But it took years for that to happen, years. And if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the guy, because they were trying to drive him crazy.
Oh,
And
really?
I don't remember I have to go back and look at it. I don't know if they succeeded in doing that or not, but I'm going to go back and look at that because that's what they do. Anytime you introduce something new or that is going to be better for the people, they will
You talking
discredit you,
about?
call you a liar.
You talking about? It's the Australian guys, Barry J.
Mm,
Marshall and
I
Robert
don't
Moore.
remember. I don't remember what their names are or what his name was, but I'll find it. Now we'll talk about it another time. But yeah, I mean, they
Okay.
do all that stuff. They do that here all the time, right? They do that everywhere. When you know that you got something that's going to help people, they will call you a liar. They will do everything. They will disparage you. They would discredit you. They would do all kinds of stuff before they say at some point, yeah, that was true. I mean, that's the same thing with smoking for years. How long did we hear it wasn't going to cause no problem? They didn't hear
Hmm.
none of that. They didn't have those labels on cigarettes and stuff. They didn't have all that.
No, no,
Didn't
they
have
did.
all that. And then
They
when
did.
folks started dropping like flies from cancer and all that stuff, they looked at the one thing. They didn't look at the food because food can do it too. But they didn't. They looked at that thing like, hey man, you put that crap in your lungs. This is what's going to happen.
Hmm.
But for years, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, when you think somebody's concerned about your health and then the FDA keeps allowing. I have
I
these
think
books
it's
at
been
home called.
corruption. It's like you said, it's corruption. The big
Mm,
money just got in the institutions, the government institutions, the FDA. The big money
uh-huh.
has got to be behind some of the lackadaisious attitude in the FDA, and that should never be the case. But
Yeah, I have
it's
these books that's called Best Pills, Worst Pills. A group of, they call themselves public citizens, and they fight with the FDA over these drugs that they push on the market that they know is not good for people. They already know that, and they fight the FDA all the time. And so they in the book it says there are pills that they have out there. It says don't take moderately. This is okay, right?
hmm hmm
That's what this book is. So I remember years ago when I hurt my back on my job. I remember years ago I went to a neurologist, and he was trying to prescribe me some medication for the pain that I was in, but I couldn't work. There's no way you can go to work. There's no way you can
Right.
drive because it's causing you to be drowsy and stuff like that. And I'm like, stop. And I would take that book with me, knowing that this topic would come up, right? I would take the book with me. I would take all kinds of books with me, depending on what the situation, circumstance I was going to a place for. And I took that book with me, and I said, "Doc, you see this book right here?" I said, "Do you know this book says not to take that pill?" And he put his elbows on his desk, and he said to me, "Ms. Burnett, if you knew how many pills I prescribe for people that are not good for them, you'd be shocked."
Oh,
And I said,
really?
"Well, on that note, yes, I'm not your guinea pig. I have to work. I can't take that. I will figure it out." Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That is,
Yeah.
oh, how
Yeah.
many
And
years
then,
ago
like,
was it?
this was like in the 90s.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But even, I mean, because I'm not a pill popper, so I'm not interested in taking a pill just because you think it's going to help me relieve my pain.
Right.
Like even when I finally went to therapy, and they would just make us do these exercises and stuff like that, and people were being apprehensive about doing that. And I think I've said this before. I recommended let people come in here on Monday after the weekend and talk about whatever they're going through, their pain or whatever. And I guarantee you'll get better results. And that's exactly what happened when people were able to get off their chest how debilitating some of their injury was and how it affected. Men were the ones who were doing most of the
Right.
talking, actually. I mean, it's
Oh,
to the
really?
point where they were breaking down crying. Yeah, because they, I'm a man. I can't take care of my family like I used to.
Right.
So forth and
Okay,
so
I
on.
got
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they were the ones who were really expressing how their injury affected them. And that
Mm.
lady came. One of the therapists came up to me. And she said, "Andrea, that was such a great idea. I don't know why we didn't think about it." I said, "Because you guys are doing your job, and I understand that. But we're not numbers. We're not just a piece of paper. We are real people who have experienced the injury, and you all need to listen to us. And you need to listen, and I guarantee you'll get better results. Don't just sit here and bark. Did you get this done? Did you get this done?" Yeah, we know we have to do that. But if I'm in pain today, I'm not going to be able to make it through your list of 20 things I got to do. I might get through 5.
Right.
And you
Right.
should be okay with that. But you keep pushing because y'all got a quota to meet. And we're not here for your quota. We're here to get better.
Yeah, that's like such a the FDA, it's a government institution. It's on the helm, They're the ones that regulate. They regulate this stuff. And if the regulations are lackadaisious just because of maybe bribes or because of bribery, corruption, if it's because some sort of organized conspiracy even to corrupt, to be in the corruption, that would be troubling because it's your money that pays for the FDA. It's the taxpayer
Exactly.
money. So, you're supposed to have the highest level of representation. That's
Of
what the
care
government is
possible.
supposed
Yeah.
to. Exactly. And it's just, I wonder
But it's,
sometimes. I wonder.
yeah. Yeah, you wonder. It does make you wonder. But like I said, I wasn't a pill pusher for my family. We just didn't do it. If you had a fever, let that fever that's there for a reason, let it work itself out. I just didn't do that. If it was something that seemed like it might be a little bit, I would put them in a cool bath water. I mean, I did everything. And then when it got to where it wasn't something I could do something about, that's when I would take them somewhere. But for the most part, I wasn't running back and forth to hospitals trying to do all that. I would do my own remedies, whatever I thought would help them at home. And that's how my kids are. They don't give their kids all these drugs and stuff. No, they mamas, sometimes they mamas go a little bit overboard, but other than that, if they need something, they call me. And then I started supplementing them with vitamin D and all this other kind of stuff. My grandbabies were not getting sick like that because I was telling them, give them this, give them that, give them this, give them that. Yeah, do this. I said, since they're not outside playing like they should,
Matter of fact,
you got to help them.
I'm about to take my vitamin D today.
Yeah.
I'm late today, so I'm gonna get on that.
But it's all of those things that help us to stay okay. But they're not going to tell you that. They want to slather on that sunscreen and do all that stuff to keep us in this this sick mode. Because if you're telling people, oh, before you go outside, you can put on some sunscreen. Well, you've already done the damage, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're telling them that sun is so bad. The sun is bad as if you lay your ass out in that sun every day, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, and you ain't got nothing. Oh, that's different. We ain't
Right.
talking about that. We're talking about going. I don't put no sunscreen on my grandbabies. Get out here and get in the pool, have fun, play for a couple hours, and let's go home. They're not out there very long.
Just monitor their skin.
Exactly.
You know, if it
But they
doesn't look
don't.
like it's getting
Yeah.
damaged, then it's not. You know,
Yeah,
basically.
but now vitamin D is a big thing here now. It used not didn't used to be. When I found out I was vitamin D deficient back in the early 2000s, vitamin D was not talked about. And I would
Right.
tell my friends, some of my friends would look at me like, Andrea, I don't believe. I said, you don't have to believe me. I'm telling you, do your own research. You don't have to believe me. I got my blood work back that showed that. You don't have to believe me. I said, apparently your doctor's not running your vitamin D because you don't know this already. So go and do your own. I'm telling you what worked for me. And that's when I said I started buying vitamins. I started buying it for I just bought bottles of vitamin D and I was giving them away to our people in particular.
As
Giving
a
it
matter
away.
of fact, you just said about vitamin D. Look at what they have here. I didn't notice that the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. began fortifying its milk with vitamin D in the when was this 1930s to help eradicate what they call rickets. You know what rickets are? It's a disease. Look, it's a disease caused by vitamin D sufficiency or deficiency. Vitamin D deficiency. I'm sorry. It's a disease caused by that, and that's in the 1930s.
And then you didn't hear that talked about. And then they don't put enough in there though. That little 400.
Right. Yeah, well, the 1930s is a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know who was
and
born.
they haven't changed it much.
They,
They haven't changed it much because when I was going to the endocrinologist, he was telling me just to take 1,000 international units. That thing wasn't doing a damn thing for me. It didn't move it a blip. But when I heard, I don't even want to say their names, but Dr. Oz on Oprah, he told her to take 10,000 international units daily. And when I started doing that, that jumped my numbers up like it was, it was nothing. And then when I got to a certain point where it seemed like it was okay, then I kind of backed down a little bit. I never went down below 5,000 because 5,000 is just the minimum that adults should be taking, just the minimum. Anything else is extra. So, but I would tell people when I tell them, I said, you need to take at least 5,000. They would look at me like I was crazy, right? I'm like, okay, so yeah, my doctor prescribed me a 50,000 IU pill. I said, one pill you take once a week? They said, yeah. I said, well, divide that by 7. What number is that? It said it's 7 point something international units, and I was just telling you to take 5, and you thought I was telling you it was too much.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
I'm like, stop it now. I'm trying to tell y'all. I'm like, I'm not trying to tell you to hurt you. I wouldn't do that. And then my one of my, when they were pregnant and stuff, I would tell them you need to take more vitamin D because you're taking it for you and the baby, And that helped my grandbabies come out, come out better, especially the twins. They were like, both of them were like 5 pounds something ounces when they were born, just because, they were nice, healthy babies. Right. So it's all that. I mean, you just have to, when I find stuff out that I know is going to help us, I do try to tell our people because it's just crazy. It's just crazy all the stuff that we have to go through. And us in particular, because we're not going to get that kind of health care.
Vitamin D is very important to, it's very important, Hey, Pumpkin, how you doing? Yeah, vitamin D it affects a lot of body, or it can affect a lot of your body function, main organs, main organs operation, So,
and the major way I found it, there was a guy out there named Bill Sardi. He had to take his website down. But he was out there saying all this stuff. And he wasn't a doctor. He was just somebody who had been researching vitamin D and doing all this other kind of stuff. And when he said the United States and Canada should be charged with crimes against humanity for not telling the Black community how important it is to have a good vitamin D level, they should be sued for crimes against humanity. And that thing just never left my head, never. Because the further away you are from the equator, the worse the vitamin D deficiency is, the further away you are. So I'm like, man, and that's what made me do my vitamin D crusade. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, but that's great that you did that. And you were able to, just help others, people around you. Hey, Pumpkin, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I just woke up. I was up since 6:30, sat on the couch and went back to sleep, but I'm good.
Oh yeah, you retired though. You could do whatever you want. For real, right? True.
It
You can
is
sleep
Sunday.
anytime you want.
Yeah.
Good morning, Pumpkin.
Good morning, Andrea. There's. Do you know that the like Sunkist orange soda? I love orange soda. I love fruit flavored stuff, and that orange coloring is something is wrong with it, and I'm not sure. They said it was banned in banned
You're
in.
talking about the orange food coloring.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
They say it's
soda?
banned in the
What soda?
soda, but they still sell it over here. And I drink orange soda a lot. I try
Oh, hold
not.
on. Let me check that out. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We were talking about the orange, asking what food coloring did they use the orange for, and I was saying they probably use it for these kind of chips like Cheetos and all of this stuff. But you know what? Fanta might be another one. But it says that
Orange soda.
they
It's
said
orange soda.
it's the ingredients is something like it's called 6 and red number 40. I think that's red number 6 and red number 40, which looks yellow. Fanta contains both yellow 6. Oh, I'm sorry, not red 6, but yellow 6 and red 40. So I think you was talking about yellow 6. And that's banned in the US, but they still use it. I mean, it's banned in the Europe, but it's still used in the US. It's
You know
still
what?
used.
I
You
want
know
to
what?
ask you.
In
Do
Europe, Fanta looks different. It don't look the same. It tastes good though.
yeah, it tastes real good. I drink all of that, but I'm
Uh,
leaving it
but
alone.
it don't
Do
look the
they
same. Doesn't look as
do
orange.
do they sell this snack over there called? I don't know how to say it, but it's spelled T A T A
Hot
T A
Taki,
K.
yeah, hot Takis, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you're talking about? Yeah, hot
that
Takis.
stuff is no good.
I think hot Takis got that chemical on it also.
Yeah, because it was
It's got a red one. I think it's red 40.
it's
It must
like
be.
orange or something. But go, you can check it out. There was a lady, she did a short on it. Her son was so sick. She said she thought he was throwing up blood, but he was eating those, whatever you call them, over
Mhm.
here. They're not banned over here, but my daughter, she'll let the baby eat them. They don't
Mm,
let them eat
mm,
those.
mm.
They look
But I think it
nasty.
said it's called red 40, yellow 60, and blue 1. That's what hot Takis have in it. And hold on, let me see something. Let me go over to try to see if I can log into this, continue as a guest. I think they have some let me see something. They got something about hot Takis out here on on that TikTok thing, but is it this one? Here, check this out.
You know those chips? Takis? Stop eating them. Stop letting your kids eat them. Stop buying them. More children who walk into my office and who admit to eating Takis for acid reflux and for abdominal pain. They're literally garbage. Stick to other junk food as your guilty pleasure. You're welcome.
Yeah, and that apparently that's not even the only side effects that they say come from it. They say is also neurological side effects as well.
Yeah, this lady's son almost died from it. He
Mm.
was crying and stuff. And Doritos, I don't allow, well, they don't come over that much no more. When my grandkids were little, I did not allow them to eat Doritos in my house because they stink. They stink and they just nasty looking and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to close this one out now because it's been like 2 hours and I actually got to take care of a few things before it gets too late. But you know what? We got to talk about this again because
Yes.
yeah, and like I said, it's an election year, so you know, let's talk about some stuff that can be done in the government, right?
Well, you got, first of all, you got to get over here. We got to get rid of the ones we got in here now because they ain't none of them got no sense if you ask me.
I
Biden is
mean,
the best. Biden is the better one of what they got, but We got
Yeah,
to,
that's true. At least he got an organization behind him. You know,
right.
Trump just a solo. You know, it's like he going solo on his mission. He don't care. You know, he gonna do what he want to do. You know, and I can imagine food coloring won't be an issue among other things. You know,
Cause he,
but he
cause,
already said revenge. He already said he's about revenge.
oh
That's
yeah,
what
that's why
that's
people
what he
ain't gonna
said.
vote for him because they know he's crazy. He'll have us in the war. He's a orange looking Dorito himself. He looks
Speaking
like
of
a
food coloring, exactly. He's the king of food coloring, as a matter of fact, because he rub it on his body.
You got
Nah,
that
anyway.
right. You've
Nah,
been
but
on a long time then, cause
2 hours now. That's why I
oh,
got to shut it down. Yeah, yeah. But I
I was
appreciate it.
asleep. I was
Yeah,
asleep.
but you got late is still good. It's all good. But I
Yes.
appreciate it. You still
Okay.
made it.
I'll
Yeah,
catch
and
you the
thank you,
next
Andre.
time.
Also. Oh, what
All
you say,
right,
brother?
I'll catch you the next time.
Oh, okay. Let me let RP up. I see RP's here before I shut down.
Hey,
What's
RP.
up, RP? How you
What's
doing?
going on?
Yeah, you up? It's early on.
I
It's
got I
early
gotta
this
put the
week.
camera on. I have to say hi. Hey. Yeah. She froze up. You froze up.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, you welcome. Mm, mhm. Yes. In your school? In your school? But you know what? Schools can. Oh, at the library. But you know what? Institutions can do that. They can propose. You can propose things, and they have a little bit of leeway these days. You know what you're going to eat in that library, right? Or is that what you're talking about? All right, good. Mm, I get you. I get you. Mhm. No, right. Facts. Mhm. Yes, absolutely. There you go. Yes. Nope. Don't go buy a car
Mm.
with similar in mind. Mm, mhm, mhm, mm. It's a good question. Yep. Mhm, mhm, mm, mm, mm. Yep. Yep.
what not to eat, and the fact that it ain't even available in other places to make them suspicious. So I just want to shout you out.
Right.
I really did, because we are on the same wavelength.
Hey, I appreciate that. And thank you so much for picking up on that too, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do, and it's good to have people from your own group that can share their experiences wherever they go around the world. You see what I mean? And I think that's really how we can get empowered. Like, you shouldn't just trust everything you hear, but my motivation is simple, just seeing and spotting things over here that I know my people would be concerned about or want to know. They will want to have that information to try to balance it out, the stuff that they get, the information they get in the US versus what others in the diaspora can tell them about the rest of the world. So that's what my whole thing is. And because I know my people deserve a lot of help. Any help that we can get, we deserve, and any empowerment we can get, and in terms of bettering ourselves, our situation is worthy. Even just when it come down to the body, it's worthy. Because think about this. Look, I'm a black man, and what did they say about black men? I mean, the data is out there. They say we live 10 years less than women, but just put that aside. That means I can expect to live 70 years. And when do you know what I'm saying? 70, it's around 70. That's the best, right? And you just have to wonder. So if you compound that, multiply that with the food that I might eat or not eat, that could shorten it. Look, would you want to, if your average life expectancy is already 70, would you want to shorten that by 10 years? Or would you want to make that 70 or the rest of it something that you got a medical condition under, while you're doing that last 10 years of your life or 20 years of your life, even, it's, we got to look into it and ask ourselves, what are the simplest things that we can do? Oh, hold on. But for me, I understand and I agree. And I thank you so much, RP, for chiming in on that. And let's see how long we can keep the conversation going and see how we can make the conversation cool to have. Because after all, we can decide ourselves once we have the information, we can decide. So yeah, big up on that. Hey, everybody, I'm going to
What
shut
is,
down.
just let me
Oh,
ask
go
you
ahead,
this.
Brandon.
What does
Yeah.
GMO mean?
Genetically modified. That's what it means.
Is it
Genetic
good or bad?
modified organism.
Organism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
organism is bad. It's because look, genetically modified, you don't know what the ramifications of that will be down the line. They got huge ramifications. Look, let me just pull that up before I shut that down. That's good. I'm sorry. Here, let's see here. Genetically
I
That's
don't. I
that's
see it a lot in meats. I don't buy it because I never knew what it meant. But I wanted to know what it meant.
it's
GMO.
all right.
a good question,
Yes.
because they be trying to make it sound like they doing what ancient people been doing for millennium, but it's
No,
different.
that's different. Yeah,
Wasn't
that's different.
doing it.
Splicing foods and stuff like that is different than this. It's genetically modified. It's like, here it is. I don't know if it's coming up on the screen. Is it there yet? Let me
It's
see.
on screen.
I might have to make it. Yeah, I'm gonna make it bigger though, so it's easier to see. Here we go. Genetically modified foods, GM foods, also known as genetically engineered foods, GE foods, or bioengineered foods, are foods produced from the organism that have had changes introduced to their DNA using various methods of genetic engineering. Genetic engineering techniques allow for the introduction of new traits, as well as greater control over traits when compared to previous methods such as selective breeding and mutation breeding. So it's basically replacing that, or is an extension of that. What they, well, no, they say such as, compared to, so that's different. But the discovery of DNA and the implementation of genetic technology in the 20th century played a crucial role in the development of transgenetic technology. Now, here's where it's getting complicated or complex, because if I look at this, herbicides, you see, hold on, look at this. In 1988, genetically modified microbial enzymes were first approved for use in food manufacturing. Recombinant rennet was used in recombinant rennet was used in a few countries in the 1990s. Commercial sale of genetically modified foods began in 1994 when Kelgan Monsanto Company, okay, first marked its unsuccessful Flavor Severe. Now, if I remember, let me see. What were they making though? Hold on. Delaying ripening tomato, right? Delayed ripening tomato. Most food modifications have primarily focused on cash crops. But I think that one of the big things that came out of this is even before that, it's like some, what is it, a flour they use in the US for to make bread with? Isn't that one of the first big scandals they had, I think? With this, let me see something
Yeah,
here.
I think
I
it was.
know.
Yeah.
It's making
I know
people fat.
nothing about that. No,
It's
no.
I think is it wheat or flour? Wheat. Making. Let me see something here. But in any case, I think the GMO. It's not only natural things. Like I heard that they tried to put some by somehow fuse some things that would be considered non, you know, what is it, natural that wouldn't be considered natural into the DNA. Like they're really twisting it that much. For example, here they talk about for weather purposes that you could have drought and some of the things could some of the plant life could survive that longer. But what are the repercussions going to be later when maybe when the environment changes, or is this plant going to take over all the other plants? Is it going to outbreed the other plants? And it's the same question within other species here. But let me go on. Hold on. I don't want to say too much about it without pulling it up. Let me see here. Recombinant. Sorry about that. But I think it's the wheat. They said wheat was the first thing that came out of it, and that's been a big deal where they don't sell it in the U.S. Uh, I mean, they don't sell it in Europe, right? But where is it? Strain of genetically engineered wheat never approved for sale or consumption. Hold on, that's not the same one though. That's a way back. But hold on, let me just look up one other thing. Maybe we need to go into that later, but I'm gonna shut it down, but for now. But I would like to pick it up later, the same topic up again and see what we can find out about it. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna dig up this last thing, what is it? Recombinant rennet. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Family produced no. Whoa, hold on. Let me see something here. Rennet enzymes. Here we go. This is what they talking about. Um, Let me just pull this one here. Here it is. Yeah. Now, what does it say here? Complex set of enzymes produced in the stomachs of ruminant mammals. It's a key component. Is a protease enzyme. Yeah. See, I think this is where the problem comes when it gets into your body. What is it going on inside of your body when you're eating this stuff? How is it affecting your body? How is your body responding to it? If it's genetically modified, the effects of that, what are they on your actual body? Rennet has traditionally been used to separate milk into solid curds and liquid whey used in the production of cheeses. Rennet from cows has become less common for this use to the point that it's less than 5% of the damn. Anyway, y'all. Yeah. Let's
I'm
get back to this. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
gonna I'm gonna look that up myself because I always wonder
Recombinant rennet.
it
Yeah.
was yeah, GMO and rennet. Look, now I know where to look. I'm gonna look it up because I grew up in a house where my grandmother from down south, and everything was freshly cooked. But now I'm not even sure if it's good to eat the vegetables, the greens, that we eat because everything is chemically treated now. when I lived in Georgia, there were two older black men who they bought it. I think they were brothers. They bought a like an acre or two of land, and they grew vegetables on it, and they sold it to the local Walmart and
Mm-hmm.
it there. And they, from what I was told, they didn't. There was no chemical sprayed on it. They grew it the old way. So I really don't know,
Mm.
but I try to eat as healthy as possible. I never ate anything GMO because I always thought it was treated with radiation. So I don't.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna look some more into it. I want to do some more research, but I think just off the top, there's enough to go off to be concerned about in terms of what's already on the shelves, and it's not just GMO, but that's one of the things. I mean, when you think about just food coloring, chemicals, and then you think about the fraud in the food system, right? The fact that they only checking like 2% of 80% of the foreign goods, food goods that are brought in. Then on top of it, so fraud meaning they're changing the product. They might slip something in, like in one product we reviewed, they slipped in wood. What is it? Sap, wood sap. That's sap they're making out of wood into a food, and people are eating it into cheese, and people are eating this wood sap. It's crazy. But on top of that, you have the GMO, the genetically modified stuff, which is also banned in the EU. Like let me just close that out on that topic. Hold on real quick. Is in MGO. I'm pretty sure because I've been reading about this for a minute. Um, but I want to make sure what I'm saying is accurate. Um, what is it? MGO, right? Oh no, GMO. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. There we go. GMO. I said it totally backwards. Right. It says, yeah, well, of course they actually have some over here, and they saying it's, of course, it has to be approved under the EU regulations. Let me see which countries have banned. Look at this. Several countries around the world have banned the use of GMOs. In the European Union, the following countries have banned GMOs: France, Germany, Austria, Greece, Hungary, the Netherlands, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Bulgaria, Poland, Denmark. So it's banned here too. Malta, Slovenia, Italy, and Croatia. In the meantime, ain't a damn thing banned in the US. You got food coloring that the kids saying that don't even make the food taste better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's too much. Then you got the fraud where they putting in wood sap into cheese, and then you have this, the fact that the GMO is still rocking in the US, banned in Europe. All of those things banned, particularly the chemicals in the GMO stuff, banned, been banned for years, 10 to 14 years. This stuff is still on the US shelves. Universal health care is not a possibility, not happening in the US. So if you get sick from any of these chemicals, right, or any of this modified stuff that's banned in other countries, who gonna pay for it? You know?
Those
Yeah.
whatever you call them, taki, whatever, however you say it. I noticed that they're only sold in like black communities in our community, because I noticed they used to have these barrels with this color water. It was nothing but to me sugar water. The kids were lit, and you can't
Kool-Aid,
find them. And you can't find them in suburban stores, white areas. You can't
right?
find them.
They drink juice. They want juice.
Takis, I
They
don't
don't
see them.
Kool-Aid.
The only place I see them in is the local stores in Walmart. Walmart is terrible with what they sell. All the Easter block. No, they serve them mostly in urban areas. Certain things they only serve in urban areas, like those whatever those things are.
Mhm.
You have to be. When I was growing up, potato chips were the worst thing. My mother wouldn't let me eat potato chips. Too
Oh,
much
we way
sodium.
past potato chips now. It's way past salt. Now it's like
It is. It is. I
every damn
see
thing, anything.
those Takis,
Look,
whatever you
dirt
call them,
chips, dirt
they
crumbs
are
you can
killing
put in your
children.
chips to make it browner. You know.
I don't know what they do.
Anyway, all right, Pumpkin. I'm
All
gonna
right, gotta go.
appreciate everybody. Thanks for coming up. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, RP, for hopping up and sharing your views as usual. And I'm gonna catch everybody on the next live. Peace, y'all. Be good. Have a great Sunday. Love y'all.
To show us how some of these ingredients may be linked to cancer and other health-related issues.
From baguettes to focaccia, Europe is famous for its bread, but one ingredient is missing